Welcome to the Understanding the IELTS Speaking Test lesson. Now let's talk about the test format. For part one, it's around 4 to 5 minutes long. And in part one, you have the introduction and questions on familiar topic areas such as work, study, hobbies, or holidays. Now, part two is around 3 to 4 minutes, and it's a 2 minute speech on a familiar topic wherein you talk with an IELTS examiner. And then for part three, it's around 4 to 5 minutes long, and it's a two-way discussion on issues related to the topic in part two. So let's dive into part one first. So as we said, it's around 4 to 5 minutes long. Now, before the part one questions start, there is a brief introduction. The examiner will introduce him or herself, and you will need to tell the examiner your name and show your identification, such as a passport or ID card. Now, the questions will then begin. The part of the IELTS speaking test is the easiest part. The examiner will ask you general questions about yourself. Common topics are about your home, family, job, studies, interests, and a range of similar familiar topics. Now, the examiner will choose three topic areas and you'll have about 4 questions on each. So you have around 10 to 14 questions, depending on how long you speak for on each. So here are some examples of questions that you will encounter in part one. Examples are, what job do you do? Why do you choose that particular job? What do you do every day? And what other work would you consider doing? Now let's go to part two. So it's around 3 to 4 minutes long. In the IELTS speaking part two, you will have to talk on a topic that the examiner gives you for 2 minutes. It is designed to test your ability to speak for an extended period without hesitation or repetition. You will be given a card that asks you to describe something. They are topics that you should have some experience of or know something about. You may, for example, be asked to describe a person you know, a place you've been to, or a possession you have, but there are many different topics, so you have to be prepared for any topic. On the card, there'll be three sub-points that you should cover when you are speaking. And you have 1 minute to prepare what you're going to say, and you'll be given a paper and pen, and if you want to take notes. So here is an example of a task card. Describe the type of clothes you prefer to wear. You should say what the clothes look like, when you prefer to wear them, where you like to buy them, and explain why you like wearing these clothes. So now we go to part three. So it's around 4 to 5 minutes long. In the final part of the IELTS speaking test, the examiner will have a discussion with you about some issues that will be related to the topic that you talk about in part two. Now, the questions in this part are of a more abstract nature and so are more difficult than the questions in part one and two. It's a two-way discussion, but you will still be expected to do most of the speaking. So here are examples of questions that you will encounter in part three. Is buying clothes a popular activity for teenagers in your country? How much money should parents spend on their children's clothes? What types of fashion do teenagers like to wear in your country? What influence has the fashion industry had in your country? Are the fashions of today different from those when your parents were young? What do you think will be the effects of the fashion industry in the next 10 years?